Sorry about that. All right. Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Good evening. I'm Eric Seaborg. I'm the president of the American Discovery Trail Society. And I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight at our annual membership meeting. It's your support that makes the nation's first coast-to-coast trail possible, and we thank you for it. Looking at the attendance, I'm gratified to see a lot of familiar names and faces on the screen who have been to previous meetings, and I'm seeing a lot of names I don't recognize. So I'm happy to see you here and welcome to you all. I'm going to do one little shout out. There's too many people that recognize, but I'm going to do one little shout out to a guy you might see named Bob Palin. He's a Utah coordinator, and he is somehow joining us from out in the Tequima Range in Nevada, where he is stashing water for a hiker and working on our route and route description there. And that's the kind of dedication that it takes from your volunteer leadership to keep the organization and trail running. So I just wanted to say hi, Bob. And then I'm going to start with a few tips about doing this meeting on Zoom. And you might want to use, if you look up in the upper right of your screen, you'll see a thing that if you put your cursor up there, you'll see a thing that says view. And you have a choice of a side-by-side speaker or a side-by-side gallery. If you do the speaker view, then when we're not screen sharing, which we're screen sharing now, and that's taking up most of your screen, but we're not always going to be screen sharing. If you're on the speaker view, then the person who is speaking will come up big on your screen instead of being just a little postage stamp. If you would like to ask a question, we're going to do questions later at the end of the meeting. You can put it in the chat function. The chat sometimes it disappears, but you'll see it on the bottom of your screen. If you take your cursor down there, it will pop up and you just click on it and you'll be able to write a question and we will see it and hopefully address it at the end of the meeting. You heard the recording start. We're recording this meeting and we'll post it on our YouTube channel later, where you can also see previous meetings. We began holding these virtual meetings in 2020, and they've allowed many more people to attend than our previous in-person meetings did. And you can see the older meetings on YouTube, and particularly you might want to look at the 2021 because it provides a summary history of the trail, and it's easy to find at youtube.com/American Discovery Trail, all one word. This is the first time we're trying a weeknight meeting, so let us know what you think of that through the chat or sending us an email. And I guess we'll see how that goes in terms of how many people end up being able to attend. Okay, well, now I'm going to get down to business. At our membership meeting last year, we announced that because of our careful financial management and accumulation of financial reserves, we were in a position to make the leap and hire a full-time executive director to replace the model that we'd been following for several years, in which we had a single part-time administrator as our entire staff. And shortly after that meeting, we hired Eric S. Howard as executive director. And I do want to make it clear that the choice was not simply based on sticking with the theme of leaders named Eric. In fact, it's made it a little confusing at times. Some people think, well, maybe we could save on stationery by doing that, but that wasn't it. So during the hiring process, the search committee reviewed more than 100 qualified applicants, and Eric's resume and cover letter immediately stood out for how well his experience, enthusiasm, and ideas fit the mission of the American Discovery Trail Society. Eric has successfully led 5 other nonprofit organizations similar in size to the ADT Society. And as a certified fundraising executive, he brings the experience that we have lacked to expand our resources, and we hope to bring the organization and trail to a new level of prominence. But in addition to this experience, he just demonstrated an outstanding appreciation of our vision. His skills could further our cause. So with that brief introduction, I'm going to turn the floor over to Eric to give a brief overview of how the American Discovery Trail Society has fared this past year and to talk about the future of the trail.
Well, thank you so much, Eric. Again, my name is Eric Howard. I'm the executive director. I have 7 short slides to share with you, a little bit about the state of the organization, some comments about changes from last year, which Eric Seaborg already alluded to, and also thinking about how the organization may go into the future and our path that we would be following. The Discovery Trail Society is a business, and we have income and expenses. And so I'll just start very briefly to say our finances are good, our finances are strong. We have about $250,000 in stocks and mutual funds. Candid and Charity Navigator both give us a high score, which in theory makes people more comfortable about giving us larger donations. And if you look at the bar chart here, over the last 5 years, income averaged about $100,000 a year. Income so far this year, as of the middle of September, is also $100,000. And we have not even approached the busiest time of year for us because we have a lot of members who contribute funds during the end of the year. And we also have a lot of members whose annual membership is up during the last 3 months of the year. So I'm optimistic on the financial side. But you all probably care a lot more about, well, what are we actually doing? How are we providing benefits to the people who use the trail? How are we making people aware that the trail even exists? And how are we working with the many, many organizations along the 6,000 plus miles of trail who play a key role in terms of managing the trail, building literal bridges, and doing work. In terms of expanding the trail, we've had a quarterly newsletter. You see 3 issues of it here that has been going on for many, many years. And I will put a call out to say that we're actually looking for a new editor of the newsletter. And so if you or someone you know would like to take on that mantle, I'm sure Laurel and others would love to have you do that work. We also upgraded the website, and you see a screenshot from the top of that website here on the screen. And then in terms of outreach, we do outreach to the public, and then we also have a private group. The private group on Facebook has 6,000 members in it. And the public Facebook group has 12,000 people in it. I'd love to see both of those numbers double up in the coming year, maybe getting 24,000 followers of the Facebook group. Also thinking about, are there some interesting videos that we could be posting on YouTube in addition to the annual meeting? Are there other ways for engaging? The brown square that you can see here, if you live in portions of California, you'll be getting that brown square in the mail as a postcard this week or early next week to invite you to a gathering we're doing at the end of October in Oakland, California. We also, in the green box there, that is a part of a publication that I've been preparing and sending out to some of the donors who are giving $100 or $500 or $1,000 or more, just to do a little bit more of connecting with those larger donors in terms of the amounts of money that they contribute. They sometimes are more curious about certain aspects of the organization as opposed to the $30 or $40 or $60 members, or the hikers who simply are using the trail without necessarily contributing on a regular basis. For me, I'm particularly aware of the outreach aspect because I lived in Washington, D.C., about 2 blocks from the American Discovery Trail, and I didn't know it existed. And my aunt and uncle in Colorado lived 1 block away from the American Discovery Trail. And when I visited them, I was never aware of its existence. And so making people aware that our trail is there, putting up signage, um, working with local partners who are preparing signs and having us co-branded on their materials is all an important part of what I see as important for the coming year and the coming years. On the left here is a sign in Washington, D.C. We worked with members of Congress several years ago to to pass a law so that the National Park Service and the Bureau of Land Management and other federal land managers have been instructed now that they should be putting our trailhead logos and our trail information on federal lands. On the right-hand side, you see a picture that was actually taken just last week in Maryland. The man in white is with us tonight, Peter Shutley. And this is a bridge over a river at an old rail trail. And because this bridge has now been built for hikers and bikers and other non-motorized users, suddenly there's a need for us to think about rerouting the trail that connects Washington, D.C. To Annapolis, Maryland. And as Eric Seaborg mentioned earlier, Bob's Palin's work out in Utah, Nevada is also thinking about, okay, how should the trail continue to evolve? The trail, Eric played a role in creating the trail back in 1990, but the landscape that the trail goes through has changed over the last 35 years, whether it be new housing developments or new rail trails or towns creating new parks. And in each of those instances, there may be something interesting that we may want to do as an organization in terms of rerouting the trail. Some of the other ideas that I received from the board and our members, we have members in all 50 states, have been, for example, signage at state lines. So when you cross the state line from one state to another, there would be a sign saying, okay, you've got another 4,000 miles to go to get to the Pacific, and you've done 1,000 to the Atlantic, or vice versa. They're also on geographic divides, having signage at watersheds or on the Mississippi River, places like that. Part of our mission is helping people understand not only outdoor recreation, but the landscapes that we go through and the history and culture of the United States. So there may be interesting opportunities to do things with school teachers and students. We have 3 retired school teachers on our board. Expanding ties with state and local park people, the biking community. Our trail passes by the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado, as well as the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. So there could be some interesting possible collaborations with veterans and the military. There's also been conversations about how we can expand availability of the data about the trail and the route. Again, to help people be aware that the trail exists and to help people enjoy the trail, share their stories, be some of those 12,000 on the Facebook group, get stories in magazines and the newspapers and elsewhere. Some of you may be aware that there was an American Revolution in 1776. 2026 is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And there are events occurring throughout the year leading up to the 4th of July and after the 4th of July of next year. And we've been exploring how we might work with local towns, local states, uh, and cities in terms of their America 250 celebrations to help people think about the American Discovery Trail as part of the America 250. And then lastly, um, I had the pleasure of doing a group hike um, uh, earlier this year. We went through, did the 45 miles across Delaware. It's one of our shorter states. And I thought it would be fun to get a group of people to walk with me on that trip. Terry in the blue in the upper right is our state coordinator for the state of Delaware. The woman in the black sweater is the manager for Cape Henlopen State Park, which is where the trail begins. We're standing around a sign that's essentially 100 feet from where our trail begins in the Atlantic Ocean. And Terry got involved in the Discovery Trail because she was visiting the state park and saw that sign and thought, oh, this sounds like an interesting idea. And that was how we brought her into the community. Um, Several people in the meantime, since April of earlier this year, have said, oh, I'd like to do a walk as well, including a older woman from the Detroit, Michigan area, and another one from Wisconsin. And so maybe another group hike across parts of Maryland might be in the offing for the spring. There may be other opportunities for us to do group hikes. And later this evening, you'll hear from a couple of people, a married couple, about a hike that they have been doing every spring and every fall. They followed the same strategy that we followed in Delaware, which is we didn't sleep outside. As you can see from our backpacks, they're small. We just carried our lunch, and in the evening, we stayed at a house or a hotel. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Peter, who is in the slide in the picture on the bridge in Maryland, to talk about trail towns. Peter, the floor is yours. And you have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. I'm the chairman of our little committee on trail towns, and trail towns is one of the major projects that the American Discovery Trail Society has been active on this year. And basically, it's a win-win program whereby interested towns that are on or close to the trail apply. And we help them in their application, and this shows their level of interest and determination to be friendly and helpful to hikers, to bikers, to get better known. And after the process of application ends, they have a big ceremony and become an official trail town. And in this picture in the middle right now, you see the results of Denton. Denton, Maryland is the first one. So my call to all of you watching this evening is if you live in a town close to the trail or know about a town close to the trail that wants more publicity, that wants more tourism, that wants people to know about your town and get recognized, a way to do it is to become a trail town. We help the towns do that, and it's a win-win situation for both of us. We support them and they support us. And the biggest success this year after Denton, Maryland, is 2 trail towns in one state, believe it or not. That state is Iowa. And a phenomenal achievement, and Butch Niebuhr deserves much of that credit. And so I'm now going to turn the mic over to Butch to explain how he managed to get 2 towns in one state to become a trail town on the American Discovery Trail. Cheers, Butch.
Thanks, Peter. And to tell you the truth, it wasn't much of a push to get the towns to do this. They had strong volunteers, and that's the main thing that you look at. Going to our website, discoverytrail.org, there's a section on trail towns that tells you everything on how to apply, what you need to do. But the first town that we had was Cedar Falls, and it's on the furthest northern part of the American Discovery Trail. And it goes through George Wythe Park. And the mayor there was a biker. And in Iowa, most of the trails are set up as rail trails, so they've been old railroad lines, and then they've designated into trails. So there's a lot of bikers compared to hikers. Although we get a lot of hikers through, even though it's a northern route, we get a lot of hikers, and I just entertain a couple hikers. One of them's with us tonight. Reese is on, Reese Lopez, and him and Sarah got them taken care of. But since then, they went through Marshalltown. Marshalltown's another town that was on my radar for a trail town. And I'm contacting a council member there to get the proclamation. And he's also a group has a strong trail group in Marshalltown. And I'm actually looking at getting a couple of other small towns. I've got a couple of them looked at. And then our capital city, Des Moines, will be another one that either getting Des Moines or Polk County, somewhere that'll include the capital of the state of Iowa, Des Moines. So try and get that going. So there's a lot of things going on in Iowa. And for Reese is down in southwestern Iowa right now. He's in Atlantic. I just got notice today that a trail down in southwestern Iowa got $2.5 million from a federal grant to start putting some trails and putting towns together. So that'll be another one that I'll be looking at real strongly. Not either Atlantic or one of the other small towns down there before we get into Nebraska. So anyway, that's what's going on with trail towns. A lot happening, and it really does help the trail towns as far as the quarterly newsletter, being able to get articles in there on the trail towns. And then once getting a hiker through, or anybody that's going across the United States, or even if it's just a day trip to go into these trail towns, because they set up and they put a deal what they're going to do for a hiker or a biker coming through town. And it might be as simple as just a place to charge their batteries and their cell phones, or get a drink of water, or get a meal, or a place to stay, or to pitch a tent. So all this, we're creating a lot of trail angels throughout our work with this. So what I would like to do is send it over to our Laurel Foote, and she's going to give out one of our annual awards. And I'm not going to take too much of her thunder from that, but Laurel, I'm going to put you up next for the Happy Feet Award.
Okay, well, great. Thank you for passing it over and explaining the Trail Town program so well. You know, one of the things that has really impressed me about the American Discovery Trail Society is it's been around for a long time, and it's this big, complicated trail that goes across the country, 2 sections in the middle. And yet, for most of the time we've been here, we've only had a half-time paid staff member. Now, this year, of course, it's changed, and we have high hopes for getting more visibility and the things that having a full-time staff member can provide us. But what has amazed me is that what we've been able to do with the support of our members and with all these great volunteers that we have. So, and that's what the Happy Feet Award is all about. I'm especially proud to be able to recognize the Happy Feet Award because it recognizes the best of the best. It's given to those who not only have volunteered, but have really done an outstanding job of volunteering. And on the plaque that is given, everybody gets a plaque who has a Happy Feet Award. It says that it is awarded to the volunteer whose actions, enthusiasm, and commitment to the American Discovery Trail serve as an inspiration to others. So I am happy to announce that the 2025 recipient of the American Discovery Trail Award is none other than Butch Niebuhr. So here was Butch right before me. He's already told you about a lot about all the things that he's been doing. And he very definitely deserves this award. He's been a member of the board of directors for on the American Discovery Trail for 14 years, since 2011. He's been the Iowa State Coordinator during that time. But even before that, he professionally and by volunteer efforts, he has been involved with conservation and recreation and nature, preserving nature. He's been on the board and was past president of the White Rock Conservancy, which is a section of Iowa where the American Discovery Trail goes through part of that, which is a nature preserve. And but I think the reason Butch really stands out, and maybe you got an inkling of that when you were just listening to him, is he is an on the ground kind of a guy. He is somebody who knows the people, knows the committees, knows the agencies that are working there. He knows how to get things done because of his professional background. And so he can share with the locals how they can use the American Discovery Trail for their benefit, whether it's to get out and get healthy, whether it's to promote tourism, whether it's to just promote their city and their town pride. So he's really done a lot for getting out there. Whenever there's been a trail expansion or a trail rehabilitation, there he is at the ribbon cutting. And for the trail town designations, there he is helping them to get recognized for all the work they've put in. So again, we just thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, sharing your time, sharing all of your expertise. And because I really feel that the being along the American Discovery Trail, it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship. It's like it helps the local people, it helps the American Discovery Trail, it helps the trail users. So when we all work together, there's no stopping us. And so congratulations, Butch. I think there's a Happy Feet Award. If you're seeing the picture of it right there, there's the Happy Feet Award with Butch. So thank you so much, Butch. Well
Thank
earned.
you. It's quite a surprise. Thank you very much. I'll spread the word for trail towns and the American Discovery Trail. Next week, I'll be at Trail Summit and a Bike Summit in Cedar Falls, Iowa. So I'll get to sing your praises for at least 2 days up there in Iowa.
See, that's just what I'm talking about. He's right there on the ground. So thank you so much. And I think now we'll turn over the meeting to Durs Anderson, who is the chair of our nominating committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Laurel. I appreciate it. I'm also the Northern Illinois coordinator of the trail for American Discovery Trail Society. This year, though, I was asked to be the chair of the nominating committee, so it's been a new experience for me. Board members are elected, they're on 2-year terms and are elected or most often re-elected by you, our members, at annual meetings, such as we're having right now. Our membership in American Discovery Trail Society covers all 50 states. So we try to have a board that is pretty representative of multiple states across the expanse of the Grand Illinois Trail, typically about 15 to 20 board members that are elected for 2-year terms. In the summer, we did have an open call for nominations. The nominating committee considered the names that were submitted. Those board members who 2-year terms go by pretty quick. So we ask, we ask board members who are interested in staying on for another term. And so this is the list of the board members that we're nominating committee is submitting to the membership for election today. Mitch Barloga from Indiana, John Faisal from California, Laurel Foote from Virginia, Vermont, a little bit of a mix there, John Mercurio from California, who will be hosting our annual meeting coming up in a month, Peter Shotley from Maryland, Lori Ann Van Hook from Indiana, Southern Indiana, Jason Bush from Nebraska, Alan Fearharm from Virginia, Brad Morrow from New York, Butch Niebuhr from Iowa, and Eric Seberg from Virginia. So I would ask that there be a consideration of these names as nominations for the next 2-year term for the board. And I think I'll turn it over to Eric at this time, Eric Seberg.
Great, thank you, Durs. Um, since it's a committee report, it doesn't actually need a second, but Eric Howard recommended that I ask for a second. So somebody want to second this motion? Laurel Foot, I saw her hand go up. So we're hoping to do this by acclamation. Now, the way you can vote is if you take your cursor, if you look down at the bottom, you'll have a bunch of symbols down there, and one is the react symbol. So if you click on the raise your hand to vote in favor of this slate of people, you would do that now. And we'll scroll down and okay, I'm seeing a lot. I guess Peter, as secretary, are you able to get an idea of
Yep, hanging in
how many
there.
there are? Okay. All right, Peter, you ready for the hands to go down or you're still?
That's fine.
Okay, now you see there's a thing that says lower your hand. So if you would click on that, oh, mine just bounced around. All right, now if anybody wants to vote nay, do the same thing. Raise your hand. And I'm not seeing any of those go up. So did I just see one? I would say it's by acclamation. Well, thank you all. And thanks to all the people for being willing to serve on the board for that 2-year term. Butch already mentioned that we do have a hiker, Reese Lopez, who's on the trail. And if possible, we might see at the end of the meeting if we can get him to come on for just a minute to just say hello and tell us how things are going. But now it is time to grab your popcorn. I hope you've already been to the concession stand because it's time for the feature presentation. Kay and Brad McKim are retired lawyers living in Northeast Wyoming. They have lived in Colorado, Texas, Alaska, London, England before retiring to Wyoming, where Kay grew up. In 2021, they found they were ready for an age-appropriate adventure, and they decided, of all things, to do that on the American Discovery Trail. They've been taking section hikes on the ADT each spring and each fall since then. They started in Kansas, and they have the goal of dipping their feet in the Atlantic Ocean in Delaware in time for Brad's 70th birthday. Now, this just might be a concession to age, but rather than backpacking, they day hike. And I will let Kim and Brad fill you in on the details of how they do that.
Hi. This is Brad, and it's my
And I'm
wife,
Kay.
Kay. So I've got a handful of slides here that I'm going to try and go through at a pretty rapid clip so that hopefully I'm not blathering on interminably. But also so that if there are questions or things you want to talk about, we'll be happy to do that. Eric's introduction covers a lot of who we are. I would only add to that Kay and I are both been hikers at different times in our lives. I grew up hiking in the east side of Yosemite with my father, doing a lot of backpacking. And then when I moved to Colorado for school, did a lot in the Rocky Mountains. And then when we moved to Alaska, Kay took up hiking in earnest. And then when we lived in the UK, she went up to Scotland a lot. So, and by then I was kind of tired of sleeping out on the ground. So, next slide, please. So, what are we doing? We're walking the eastern half of the ADT, as Eric said. We decided to start pretty much dead center, which is at McPherson, Kansas, and we're walking about 200 miles a year, all told. Next slide, please. So why are we doing this? Kay and I did the Centennial Trail in South Dakota. We're in extreme northeast Wyoming. The Black Hills of South Dakota lop over into Wyoming for just a little ways, and we're just barely in the Black Hills. But South Dakota has a Centennial Trail that runs north-south in the Black Hills. It's a little over 100 miles. And back in the days before COVID, we would go over and do 7 to 12 miles a day, and then a week or two later go do a bit more. And we completed that trail over the span of about 2 years. And then shortly after we finished that, COVID hit. And then, like everybody, we had a lot of time on our hands to sit around and dream about what we were going to do when there wasn't a COVID anymore. So that's when I found the American Discovery Trail online, and I didn't have any strong desire to climb the big peaks of the Western U.S., a lot of which I had done in my youth, but I haven't spent a lot of time in the Midwest and on the East Coast. So we decided that we would start in McPherson and try and walk a couple hundred miles every year, and hopefully make it work so that we ended up walking into the Atlantic Ocean on my 70th birthday in March of 2031. We're on course for that. And fortunately, Kay said she'd do it with me, so that's made it a lot more pleasant for me. Next slide, please. As I said, I'd gotten tired of doing hikes where I slept on the ground, and so we are not by any means roughing it. I have a lot of admiration for the people who strap on a backpack and start at one coast or the other and hike across, but that's not what we're doing. We are a lot of the fun for the walking for me is I like to figure out the logistics of finding bed and breakfasts and how we're going to get around and do the each set of hikes. It is amazing. Every time we talk to someone, the very first question I get asked is, "What do you do for transportation? How do you handle the logistics?" And when we were in Kansas, it was close enough to Wyoming that we drove down both our cars and we just did our own shuttle. After that, we would fly down to wherever we were going next, rent a car. And if we were near a city, we'd just rent a car and then get an Uber or a Lyft at the end of the day. But and then we've had a couple trips where we just rented 2 cheap cars and we did our own shuttle. Now this picture here of Shirley and Frank and their dog Elsa is the very first part of the hiking I did on my own because I made the assumption, which turned out to be false, that that part of Kansas would be very flat and boring, and Kay had other things that she would probably rather do. It turned out to be a really neat stretch, but I needed a ride back to my car each day. And the ADT coordinator for Kansas was kind enough to track down Shirley and Frank, who had hosted other hikers. And they picked me up at the end of each day, and they were just delightful. And they take me back to my car. So that was one of the more fun ways that we got around. On average, we do about 9 to 14 miles a day, and we usually go for about 8 to 10 days per trip. So next slide, please. I thought I'd share just a few lessons that we've learned about the hiking, which I think anyone who's done much of it will know some of these for sure. But one thing we learned the very first time was that the feet always come first, that this is a really fun activity if your feet are okay. It's a really miserable activity if they're not. And when we got back from our first time, we had strained tendons and lots of blisters, and I went straight to a podiatrist, and he said, one thing, don't change shoes. Once you started off on some shoes, if they're comfortable, stick with them because you're really forming them to your feet. The other thing he suggested, which has been a real lifesaver, is he suggested lathering our feet in Vaseline each day and reducing the friction so that we didn't get blisters. And so we go through the ritual every day before we start out of putting Vaseline all over our feet and then putting on a thin layer of socks and then a pair of wool socks. And if it's a particularly hot or long day, we'll stop at midday, eat some lunch, and redo our feet. So it's really a romantic, pretty glamorous thing that we do every time. Next slide, please. We also learned about the time of year to go. I really had a hope of being out in early March on my birthday every year and avoiding all the offers to go have parties here in Wyoming to celebrate my birthday. But we learned pretty quickly that early March is pretty cold most of the places, and hiking in gear like this is kind of takes away some of the fun for us. So we now go in early April, early to mid-April, which seems to work well. Next slide, please. And we also now go in mid to late October, which is very pleasant temperature-wise. We went in late September, and this is in Illinois, and you can't see the sweat pouring off a Kay from this picture, but it was there because it was about 95 degrees and 90% humidity, and that was no fun either. So again, we try and do this as comfortably as we can, and we so far now the last couple of years have been particularly comfortable. Next slide, please. We've gotten into Illinois and Indiana and more hiking and forests, which is more what we're used to. So that's been a lot of fun, but it increases the amount we're carrying because you're spending more time out on trails without as easy access to towns and roads. And we have to carry a little more foot gear because there are stream crossings. And so it's a fun adventure, but it's definitely added to the amount of planning that goes on. Next slide, please. We've also learned that sometimes the trail just is not available. And I should say we have not been purists about how we've approached the trail. We don't worry about which direction we're going as long as at the end of each state we have covered the miles that we need to cover to go across that state. So for example, when we first started, even though our goal was to walk from the middle of Kansas east to the Atlantic Ocean, when we started in Kansas, we walked west for 4 or 5 days because the wind was coming from the opposite direction and we did not want to be walking into the wind. So We walked east to west, which worked out just fine. This situation last year in Indiana, the Ohio River had flooded and you couldn't get across to where the trail was easily. So we had to go around, and we ended up at the same spot where the trail would take us, but we had to get on some roads that were not necessarily part of the trail in order to get to where we were going. But it was all ended up being about equivalent mileage. Next one, please. You got to share the trail. This was in the Shawnee National Forest. Kay sat down. We were looking for a good spot to watch the eclipse, the total eclipse that day. And Kay sat down here for about, she sat there for about 5 minutes before realizing that this guy was literally about 3 inches from her. And she leapt as high as I've ever seen her leap. Turned out that this was a harmless rat snake, which I found out from my nephew who runs the reptile exhibit at the Oklahoma City Zoo. But he did allow that if it gives you a heart attack, it is not a harmless snake. So next, if you're going to hike someone, you've got to make sure they're tough. Kay is very tough. She loves to hike. But we had a little mishap. This has all not been without incident. Kay was hiking in Shawnee National Forest, a beautiful morning, and we both, I think it was our first day out, and I got a little ways ahead, which is unusual because Kay usually leads me. But I thought, well, good, I'll just get out here, and then she didn't catch up for quite a while, and it turned out she had taken a fall, and she kept saying she was okay, but 87 miles later, about a week later, she finally allowed that maybe she needed to go to the doctor because she still couldn't put her pack over both shoulders, and found out that she had fractured her clavicle. So she did over 100 miles with a fractured clavicle, and I thought that was pretty darn impressive. So next, please. For those of you who don't know about the Gaia app, you should get it. I managed to get us lost 2 or 3 times in Missouri and early on in Illinois because I wasn't using the app, even though I had it on my phone. And then fortunately, somewhere in Illinois, I rediscovered it, and I always have it on now because it has saved us several times from taking a wrong turn, or because there are some places on the trail, not often, but some places where it gets overgrown, and like we had like a mile in Illinois last year where the trail just disappeared, and we followed the Gay app, and it brought us right to where we needed to be. But it is really helpful. Next, please. I want to just run through a few of the places we found to stay on or near the trail because they've been a lot of the fun for us. This is the very first place we stayed, which was in Ottawa, Kansas, which Ottawa is an interesting spot because the trail comes from the west to east, hits Ottawa, and then turns north for quite a long way. So it was a good kind of hinge point. We started there. The Painted Lady Bed and Breakfast is hosted by Sharon Geis. She was great. She took us out to the trail a few times as we got further away from the bed and breakfast, and she runs a really nice bed and breakfast. Next, please. This is the Lindenhof in Augusta, Missouri, and it is literally right on the trail. The trail runs right out behind it. And I really liked the outreach comments that Eric made early on about those efforts, because we are constantly amazed at the number of people who have businesses right on the trail who don't realize that they are right on the trail. They don't even know that it exists. And Kathy Murphy, who's delightful, was one of those people, and she was pretty thrilled to learn that there was this route that ran right behind her bed and breakfast. So we recommend the Lindenhof. She does a good job, and she has a very sweet three-legged dog. So next, please. This Silos at Prairieville. This is about 2 miles off the trail, and I can't remember the name of the town that it is near, but it's in Missouri. And the owner does a great job. But the inside of that silo is fantastic. I mean, it's amazing. You look at that and go, that can't be very good, but it is really nice. So Stephen Gaffel, who I think you mentioned earlier, but he's about to do the whole thing. And Kay and I, he was having a particularly tough time going through Missouri, and so Kay and I got him a night at this at the silo, and he thought it was pretty cool too. Next, please. This is about 5 miles off the trail in St. Louis. It's a really nice bed and breakfast. Next slide. I just wanted to emphasize it because it had maybe the best breakfast I've ever had. It was great. Yeah, so we really were well fueled that day. Next, please. In Illinois, in Maystown, this is a little further off the trail. It's about a 10-minute drive back to the trail, but it was about the closest town. And this bed and breakfast, the owners were really delightful. It's a cute town. It's just a really cute town. So hats off to Maystown. Connor House, and I'm not sure how you say this in Illinois, Prairie du Rocher, is literally right on the trail. And again, the owners didn't know. And they had people from every state except for Wyoming and Rhode Island. So we were a little bit surprised how happy they were to see us until they explained that to us. So, next, please. Shanna runs the Stoneface Manor near Harrisburg, Illinois, which is an interesting spot. It's in that area, the ADT goes north for quite a ways and kind of loops over the top of where Stoneface Manor is and then comes back south. And that covers quite a distance, but it was really nice because we could stay there we ended up staying a total of close to a week because it wasn't a very long drive any direction we went. We started out to the west and ended up to the east, and neither direction was very far. Next, please. So another reason why I got excited about doing the eastern half of the American Discovery Trail is that there are lots of presidential sites all along the way. And I'm doing a shameless plug for a couple of books that I have written, and they're out there on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all that. But I thoroughly enjoy presidential sites. Next slide, please. There's famous ones. The ADT goes right through Lincoln's boyhood home memorial. It's a really neat site. We had a great day there that day. We walked in, and you can walk down the length of it right to the museum that they have. It's a great spot on the trail. Next, please. And then there's more obscure ones, like in Indiana. This was the room we had at the bed and breakfast we stayed at there. And next year, as we go into Ohio, we'll see lots of president sites, and William Henry Harrison's home is along there as well. So anyway, that's a big attraction for me, at least, and Kay tolerates it reasonably well. Next, please. Just a few miscellaneous ones. We happened to be on the ADT when the last total eclipse happened, and it was so fun. We found a nice open field and had a picnic and watched everything go dark. That was fun. Next, we have this is in Indiana. Shortly after we walked into Indiana, we found this grocery store, and our last name is not the most common, so that was interesting. We don't know if they're our kin or not. Next. We also, about 2 miles from the trail, excuse me, we I spotted the Sigler Cemetery, and Kay's maiden name was Sigler, and so we spent a chunk of a morning poking around that cemetery, and her sister, who does a lot of genealogy, confirmed that a lot of Kay's relatives were buried in that cemetery, and it is the middle of nowhere. It took us a long time and a rough dirt road to find it. Next, please. This is Steve Gaffel. He is the only ADT hiker who we met as we're walking east. He was walking west, and we know there's a lot of hikers out there because we've heard a lot of the stories and stuff. But he's the first one we actually ran across, and it's been really fun to keep up with him as he's walked. And like I say, we got a lot of admiration for Steve being out there hiking and camping. And if you're not following his Instagram page, you really should. It is a daily dose of great pictures, great writing, and sometimes high drama. So definitely recommend that to you. Next, please. So that's kind of what we're doing. I'm on Facebook, and every time we complete one of our trips, I come back and do a little album of that trip with descriptions of what we've been doing and people we've met and things like that. So by all means, if you'd like to, I guess it's friend me on Facebook and look at those albums, look at that album about the eastern half of the American Discovery Trail. I'd love to have that. Anything you want to add?
Oh, it's brilliant.
Okay. Any questions?
No questions. It was just a great story.
Thank you so much for sharing it. Always good to have always a variety of perspectives on this route. So it's always good to hear some more.
And if you want to follow Steve, he's Sauntering Steve. Someone's posted the link there, and he's leaving Carson City tomorrow to head east again. I've put so he's got about 50 or 60 gallons of water along the trail between Carson City and Moab. Hopefully he'll get to them, not the critters.
Good job, Bob.
Carson City is one of a number of state capitals that the trail goes through, including Sacramento and Denver and Des Moines, as was mentioned earlier, as well as way in the east, Annapolis, Maryland. So one project that I've been thinking about for the future is thinking about how do we better connect with state legislatures and governors, because they are the ones who often hold the budget strings for outdoor recreation in their states. When are you starting your next walk, Kay?
We're going to be going again into Indiana on, I believe it's October 16, and lovely fall colors. I just appreciate the beauty along the variety of trails that ADT covers, because we've been doing springtime as well as the fall colors, and it's fun to see the difference in, after 6 months, what a trail looks like.
Yeah, and I'd add to that part of the attraction of the east part is I think there's a lot more trails, obviously crossing the mountains in the west, but the east portion, we just get a great mix of roads and bike paths and state park trails. And, so it never, I don't know that we've ever had longer than like maybe 10, 15 miles where we're just walking along the side of a road. It breaks up really nicely. And people always think we're crazy for doing this, our friends and stuff, and then we describe it to them and they go, wow, that does sound kind of cool. So
Brad, when you were walking, did you use our turn-by-turn directions? You had mentioned using the Gaia app. And my question about if you used our turn-by-turn directions, were they helpful? Was there something else you'd wish they'd included, or what?
No, they are very helpful, and the answer is yes. We use them. The original ones that we got are great. The problem I had is any days we were actually walking east, we were having to do them in reverse. And then I guess John Wesley Brett ended up doing the reverse of those, and those were very helpful as well. And so now we kind of get to our starting spot and typically use the Gaia app. But when we're in a town, if we're heading, we chose that day to walk west, then we use the original ones that we got in the books. And if we're walking east, then we'll usually use John's to get us through that. But yeah, those are
Okay.
those are quite entertaining.
Eastern coming right up. We've been working on them. There will be eastbound official description very soon.
Great, great.
So were there any big surprises for you that you encountered?
I guess maybe not surprises, Laurel, but delights maybe. When you're in the middle of Kansas, you don't expect, you're going to expect flat. And I'd hiked in, I like mountain peaks. That's what I was used to. But what I love is the people that you run into, and we stop along the trail and go into a little cafe, maybe just a gas station, and we meet the locals, and that to me is maybe my favorite part is, and I come from small town in Wyoming, so I love that part of Americana that we're experiencing. And the other surprise, I guess, would be when you are walking flat for 12 to 20 miles a day, you get your feet hurt a lot more than if you are going on hills, because your feet are hitting the same spot on flat, whereas on hills they get a break. Some part of your foot gets a break. That's a surprise.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brad, I really appreciated the first slide that you had of you on the top of the Eads Bridge crossing the Mississippi River. John Odell, who is the Southern Illinois coordinator at the time, he and I were the first two people to cross the ADT on that bridge.
Oh,
Oh, great.
Sometime around 1998 or 99, when it was first opened. As you know, the lower level of that is the metro with the hiking trail on the top of it.
Right, right. Now St. Louis was great. We hadn't spent much time in St. Louis, and we really loved St. Louis. And then so we were a little bittersweet walking across that bridge, because we thought, oh boy, that was a great city. So
it turned out to be quite a challenge. That bridge had been closed for many years, and it had been proposed for the metro to East St. Louis and St. Louis over on the Illinois side, and the funding was acquired for it in 1993, and then they had the major flood in 1996, and all the money for that bridge went to recovery of mostly along the Katy Trail on the Missouri side. And that's what convinced the farmers that the Katy Trail was a benefit to them to be able to get their farm equipment and their cattle out, because it's the only raised part of the landscape.
wow, I didn't even. We
That's
spent so
interesting.
much time on the Katy Trail, and I hadn't heard that. That is very interesting.
I have one more question. which is as you're hiking on the trail, and I'm thinking of the kind of signs that we've put up. What would be meaningful or interesting to you? Like bigger kiosks when you go from one state to another, a big sign, or at a major trail junction where several trails cross each other, some kind of a kiosk that says, ADT or the Continental Divide Trail or Mississippi Trail or whatever. What I'm looking for is ideas where we could have some projects installing particularly signs that would be useful to hikers, particularly people like you.
Yeah, I guess I have a bit of a bias about overdoing anything on hiking trails because I grew up hiking in wilderness areas, and I like the not having a lot of clutter in the hikes. I really think the opportunities are in the towns. I really like the the trail towns concept because I just feel like the whole thing is such a great idea to go from coast to coast and is I mean it's so American. We lived in Europe, and when we tell our European friends about this, they just they obviously love to hike where they are and stuff, but the idea of a trail that traverses the US, they're just fascinated by. So I think some of these towns that it goes through, the more getting out to town leaders and businesses and saying, hey, you're right here on this trail, and there are people going through this all the time that you may not be aware are doing a big thing of crossing the country, and if they know that there's something when they come to this town, whether it's simple as a discount at the business or a special recognition when you go through this town, I think more signs in those towns as you come into them, saying this is a trail town or this is right on the ADT. It's most of these towns have things about their local trails or their local things, but you don't see a lot about the ADT. Now, when we're out away from things, I see the ADT markers, and those are great to get to see. But I think there's real opportunity in what you all are talking about with the trail towns and with just the outreach to a lot of these places. Because, like I said, like Kathy Murphy in Augusta, Missouri, she was stunned that her business was literally right on this trail that traversed the country, and got really excited about it. So,
thank you.
mm-hmm.
Additional questions for Brad McKim or for Eric and Eric?
I'd be interested in why you had such a great time in St. Louis. What impressed you so much about St. Louis? So I know it's a really historic town, and there's a lot there, but what really hit you?
Well, we had been there when our children were younger, and hit the tourist spots, but we were there in the springtime. Well, we were actually there both spring and fall, but during the spring, the blossoms of the trees in the city itself, and you're walking through some just incredibly stunning parks. And there's also some really nice neighborhoods that you walk through on the ADT trail. Um, uh, but then you also get to go down into the nitty gritty heart of St. Louis, and it's safe. It all felt completely safe, and but to traverse from the suburbs, and we'd stop. There was maybe a brewery or a wonderful place that Yelp had said has got the best cornbread or something, and we stopped there. And then you go into these lovely residential areas, and then you come into the heart of the city, and then you go under, the arch. It's just, and I just thought it was such a beautiful city, and it's quite diverse in its population, and I love that. And we just had great conversations with people there. I think I had some biases about St. Louis going into it, and I just found I just love that city.
Yeah. The food is fabulous.
Good reasons.
Yeah.
I would ask a question of Reese Lopez of you started at the Atlantic earlier this year, and how far are you going to make it before you stop for the winter?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, the plans changed a few times. So now we are aiming to stop at the border of Nebraska and Colorado, where it dips down. And that kind of mirrors on the southern route where we stopped at the border of Illinois, Indiana. So we're kind of tie up all the loose ends next year and get over the mountains.
Because we've been seeing your emails periodically to Peter Shetley about talking to people that you encounter along the way about being trail towns, and we appreciate that very much because I think it's given us some ideas on what to follow up.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been fun, and I just feel like sometimes even meeting these people, it just kind of falls into my lap, and the first thing I think of is you guys, and it's a pleasure to try and kind of connect the dots. And Peter explained to me that it takes much longer than I wish it did, because I wish a month later you're announcing you had all these new trail towns. So I have to learn to be patient with that, but that's okay.
We wish it was faster too. Reese, have you had a favorite part that you'd want to talk about?
Actually, okay, so we were doing the southern route, and then we flipped to the north, and the north is, I mean, I'm not a cyclist, but it's really great for cycling. It's almost all bike and walking paths. So we've really enjoyed the path through northern Indiana, northern Illinois, Iowa, um, just this whole area. Indiana and Iowa, they have reputations. There's the Hoosier State and Iowa Nice, and we really are experiencing that on a daily basis. So just a lot of really, I mean, all the states had really nice people, but you can meet groups of them out here. So it's been real fun.
I guess I'll ask if anybody else has any other questions. Or we can just wrap up the meeting. And I'll say thanks to you all for being here. And again, thanks for your support of the American Discovery Trail Society. And Eric Howard has just put up another slide that says if you're interested in, we're always looking for volunteers. There's lots of ways to get involved. And, especially looking for help, I think on the website, and it's always field testing the route. But if you want any information, you can contact Eric Howard at info@discoverytrail.com.